debates now. First, Dominic Waghorn from Sky News.
Thank you very much. Mr. Secretary, you've announced new sanctions today. We've had a lot of sanctions, and the war grinds on for, as you say, into a third winter. What the Ukrainians have said they want, and reportedly your British allies have also said this privately, is the freedom to use the long-range missiles that you're supplying them to do what they're designed to do, which is to hit targets deep in Russia, to hit the source of those glide bombs and possibly the new missiles you're saying that supply of ballistic missiles could allow the Russians to now use. Has that time now come? And if not, why not? And what are you afraid of?
So I think a hallmark from day one of our efforts to support Ukraine against this aggression is to work to make sure that they have what they need when they need it to be most effective in dealing with the Russian aggression. And I think that you've seen, again, from day one, that we have continuously adjusted and adapted based on battlefield conditions, based on what Russia was doing in a given place and by given means. And that's been a through line in everything that we've done. I've said this many times before, so my own colleagues may be tired of hearing me say it, but it's so important as we're making these decisions that we factor in a number of critical elements. It's not just the system itself that counts. You have to ask, can the Ukrainians effectively use it? And sometimes that requires significant training, which we've done. Do they have the ability to maintain it? Again, this is something that we've worked on. And then, is it part of an effective strategy? All of these are questions we're continuously asking ourselves. Secretary Austin, Secretary of Defense, his British counterpart, and others who just gathered on the defense side are constantly working these issues. Now, one of the purposes of the trip that we'll be taking together is to hear directly from the Ukrainian leadership, including Prime Minister Zelensky, President Zelensky, about exactly how the Ukrainians see their needs in this moment, toward what objectives, and what we can do to support those needs. So all I can tell you is we'll be listening intently to our Ukrainian partners. We'll both be reporting back to the Prime Minister, to President Biden in the coming days, and I fully anticipate this is something they'll take up when they meet on Friday.
Great, thank you. Daphne Saladakis from Reuters.
Thank you. Secretary Blinken, the U.S. has provided Ukraine with billions in military aid since 2022, but has limited the use of U.S. weapons to Ukrainian soil and defensive cross-border operations. Ukrainian President Zelensky has pushed back against allies who have supplied long-range weapons, but said Ukraine cannot use them deep inside Russia. So to follow up on my colleague's question, what will your message be to the Ukrainians about this during your visit this week? And more broadly, what do you see as the potential military impact of Iran supplying the ballistic missiles to Russia? Foreign Secretary, has Britain received sign-off to allow Ukraine to use the Storm Shadow missiles to strike targets inside Russia? And have you pushed for this? Thank you.
Thank you. I'm tempted to refer you to the previous answer. But look, again, I just want to emphasize this. As always, we're going to look and to listen and to make sure that we have our own best assessment of what's needed, what the objectives are that our Ukrainian partners have in the weeks and months ahead, and how we can best support them. And we will take that back and we'll both inform our bosses, the Prime Minister and the President. And again, I fully expect that will be a part of their conversation on Friday. A lot goes into each one of these decisions. But every step along the way, our purpose has been to make the Ukrainians as effective as possible in warding off the Russian aggression. And the fact of the matter is, if you look at where we are, these are difficult days given this aggression, but Ukraine continues to stand strong. And I believe that it's very much on a trajectory where it will be able to stand strongly on its own 2 feet, militarily, economically, democratically. It will be increasingly integrated with Europe. And Putin will continue to know a strategic failure in Ukraine, and the Ukrainians will know a strategic success in building a strong, vibrant country. But a lot more work has to go into making sure that happens, and we will be listening very intently on this and reporting back. On the Iranian weapons, as I said, this gives the Russians an additional capability and it gives them additional flexibility. They have ballistic missiles already, but the particular Iranian missiles that they're getting have a certain range. This means that Russia will be able to dedicate its own ballistic missiles to longer range targets, not use them on the shorter range because it will have these Iranian missiles that have about a 75-mile radius to them to do that. So it adds to their capacity and it fuels the war. Anyone who is providing assistance to Russia, whether it's direct lethal assistance like Iran or North Korea, whether it's assistance to their defense industrial base like China, is perpetuating the war, is fueling the conflict. And this is a threat not only to Ukraine and to the Ukrainian people, it's a threat to all of Europe. I think if you ask any of our European colleagues, they see Russia posing the greatest threat to European security since the end of the Cold War. So countries that are playing into this by supplying Russia, they are fueling a threat to Europe more broadly, not just Ukraine. And they have to take that into account, particularly in their own relationships with Europe.
As you would expect, Tony and I have discussed Ukraine now since taking office nearly every other week. We had a fruitful discussion today. It's hugely important. I said in my opening that this was a critical moment. It's hugely important that we're traveling together to hear from our Ukrainian counterparts and President Zelensky their assessment of the situation on the ground and their needs on the ground. It would, however, be quite wrong to comment on the detail of operational issues in a forum such as this, because the only person who could benefit is Putin. And we will do nothing to give him any advantage in his illegal invasion. On the transfer of ballistic missiles from Iran, this is a troubling pattern that we're seeing from Iran. It is definitely a significant escalation, and we are coordinating action, and we'll have more to say on that very shortly.
Thank you. Patrick.